So, my dear friends, welcome to the 31st class of the Bhagavad Gita. We are studying chapter 3. In the last class, we covered from verses 33 to 38. And just to revise those verses before we continue our journey, in shloka number 33, Krishna told Arjuna that how people behave according to their prakriti, that each one has a nature, and even the wise men or the enlightened one or the ignorant one all have certain prakritis, and people continue to work with that. And repression, just mere suppression or repression, will not work. And then why it will not work gets clarified in shloka number 38, where he says that the veil of ignorance is, for some, it is like the smoke covering the fire. For some, it is like the dust covering the mirror. And for some, it is like being inside a womb, and only with the passage of time and only with the company of higher people or nobler souls can such souls eventually come to the point where they can even start seeking God. So yes, we are all having an individual nature. Of course, our true nature is that of the self, but there is a superficial nature that we all have developed because we have lived multiple lifetimes and have developed a particular set of tendencies, habits, and attitudes. So we have a unique mind and personality as well. So in shloka number 34, Krishna warns Arjuna about attachment and repulsion, about our likes and dislikes. And he says that we must rise above our likes and dislikes because these are our enemies, and because they keep us bound to the cycle of karma, and then of course the cycle of rebirth and redeath. Coming to shloka number 35, now Krishna tells Arjuna that it is better to die trying to do your own dharma, your swadharma, rather than to try and do somebody else's dharma, even if you superficially think you can do that better. And of course, we know that the most important reason for this is that if we want to get free of the karmic cycle, of the cycle of birth and death, and if we want to achieve moksha, then we want to cut short the distance between where our ego is right now and towards realization. But if we keep performing duties that are not our swadharma but our pardharma, then we will keep engrossing and accruing further karma, and for that we have to come again and again to receive the fruits of that karma, whether good or bad. So if we want self-realization and if we want it fast, then it is better that we stick to whatever duty, that God-given duty that we are doing in this world. And Master says, do not compare yourself with others, because if you're doing a simple duty in this life and you're living a simple life and combining it with calm meditation and a spiritual development, then this is much better as compared to someone who's leading only a sensual or worldly life, even though it may be glamorous on the outside. So one must not compare. And also he tells us that the true swadharma is working for self-realization. So this is our highest duty. Our highest dharma is towards our own soul, and all the actions, the spiritual activities that we do to achieve this is going to be our swadharma. And Master says it is much better to die trying to uplift yourself spiritually rather than living in the world of senses. And because previously we have studied that living in the world of senses is living in vain, it is living in pain, it is living in boundation. But since we want freedom, therefore we must do the highest dharma of working towards our own self-realization. Then in shloka number 36, Arjun asks Krishna, he asks him that what is it that impels me, even when I know that this is not the right thing to do or not the right habit to indulge into, then what is it? What is this force that literally compels me, propels me to do wrong action? And in the next shloka, Krishna answers this in shloka number 37. He says it is the force of desire. And it is the force of anger, which is frustrated desire, which propels man to keep doing things that he doesn't want to do, because to some extent he has gained some intellectual knowledge and wisdom where he knows that he must go towards spirituality, he must rise towards his self-realization. But part of him is still caught up in the world, and the power of desire and power of frustrated desire plus the power of habit combined with this becomes so powerful that even against his will, he is drawn into this pit. And then how one can get out of this pit is going to come in the next shlokas. So this is a beautifully created foundation for us, where we understand that yes, we are caught, and we know where we are caught. We are caught up in desire, and then Krishna will tell us what we can do about this. We'll start with shloka number 39 today, and 39 is actually an extension of these 36, 37, 38. The same thought is being propelled into shloka number 39. So let's read this. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha. हे कौन्तेय, विज्ञ जनों की नित्य वैरी इच्छा कामना की अश्मित लौ है, यह जान लो, ये आच्छादित कर लेती है. O son of Kunti Arjuna, the constant enemy of wise men is the unslakable flame of desire, by which wisdom is concealed. So again, he's saying that this unshakable flame of desire, this is that, for a sattvic person, this is the smoke that covers the fire. For a Rajasic person, this force of desire is the dust or the mud that collects over a clean mirror. And for the Tamasic person, this is the container in which the Tamasic person is inside, and only time can take him out of there. So this force of desire again is being stressed about. Now, for each one of us, it's a real point of introspection that Krishna is asserting again and again that desire is going to bound you, desire is going to lead you to sorrow and suffering. And of course, let us remember Buddha's 4 noble truths. The first noble truth, he says that there is suffering in this world. And the second noble truth, he says, the cause of suffering is Trishna or desire. So this is such an important revelation to us. Revelation, of course, we have known this theoretically. But in our day-to-day life, think of the moments in your day when you felt melancholic, sorrowful, angry, or whatever. Some or the other desire was frustrated. What kind of desires on a daily basis happen? Oh, this person did not behave the way I expected him to behave or I wanted him to behave. Oh, my children are not listening to me. Oh, my spouse is not worried about me. So basically, all of this is an expectation from the universe. You are desiring from the universe to treat you like this great person and to keep, puffing up your ego, which is not going to happen. So all desires, all the sorrows that you're having in a day are mainly because you have some desire or some expectation from this universe. And let us remember again and again that this universe owes us nothing. So the moment you tell yourself this truth, this mirror you have to see again and again. You have to remind yourself that nobody really owes you anything. This universe is not waiting to garland you. So remove that expectation, remove that desire. And once you do that, most of your sorrow will be gone. So coming back to that same thing, that desire is that flame which is unquenchable. And this is an insatiable fire. And this is what is the enemy of the wise. And why is it insatiable? Because if you have one sense pleasure, then you're forced to redo it again. And if you, let us say, satisfy that desire, but again, it is not quenched forever. So again, you have to fulfill it. Again, you have to fulfill it. It's something like, eating so many meals a day, and then we think, okay, now after finishing one meal, we feel, oh, now I am satisfied, and now I don't think I will feel hungry again. But after 3 hours again, 4 hours again. So similarly, all the desires are like that. You can never really appease them. You can never really fulfill them. And so therefore, Master says you must stop the policy of appeasement of desire. You should actually declare war with desire. And declaring a war with desire will happen only when you are aware in your mind. You are so alert in with your thoughts that you are aware that, oh, now again a desire is arising in my mind. And then you bring in your intellect and tell yourself that I know the scriptures say this. My guru has told me that fulfilling all my desires are never going to quench this flame. I might as well not give food to this desire. So, but you have to remember and think of all the people on earth, 8 billion people on the planet, all of them are suffering from this disease of desire in one way or the other. That is why predominantly we are here on earth. That is point number one. But point number two is, whatever occupation a person is, whatever background, whatever culture, whatever religion, whatever continent, all have desires. And it is desire which keeps all mankind in sorrow and suffering. Therefore, obviously, transcending desire should be our highest priority. And of course, we know that as long as we have bodies, we are going to have certain simple desires, like the desire to eat food, because the body is going to have hunger, it is going to demand. So we are not talking of those desires. We are talking of modifying our desires, simplifying our desires, minimizing our desires, and let our main desire be desirelessness. Let our main desire be desire for God. Let our main desire be self-realization, because you may say that this is also a desire, but Master says this is a desireless desire. And the truth is that having this one desire will cut asunder all your lesser desires from this world. Okay. A very interesting metaphysical point Master has brought in this shloka. He says that the worldly man predominantly works through his lower chakras. And lower chakras are matter bound. So what are the lower chakras? We have the coccygeal or the Muladhara, we have the sacral or the Swadhisthana, and we have the lumbar or the Manipur chakra. So if we are operating from these lower chakras, then we are going to be matter bound. We are going to have desires of the world. Therefore, the wise man, the intellectual man, the spiritual seeker, the one who is in quest of truth, starts to operate from his higher chakras. Master says you must operate from the point of your spiritual eye, because spiritual eye is that point which is the center of your willpower, it is the center of your intellect, it is the center for your intuitive understanding. And it is when you operate from there, then you can see that how, desire is enmeshing you. Therefore, on a daily basis, we should try and, whenever we have time, we should try, even with closed eyes or open eyes, we should try and uplift our gaze a little. And that will help us. So these are physical things that you can do. The position of your body, you can straighten up your spine. You can uplift your eyes a bit. You can consciously take a few deep breaths. Consciously be aware of the movement of prana within your body. And all these little things will help you to rise above the tyranny of desire. And if you remember this chant that Sri Yukteswar liked, he desire my great enemy. So it says, desire, my great enemy, with its soldiers surrounding me, is giving me lot of trouble, oh my Lord. So, and in this chant, where does it end? It says, pranayam be thy religion. Pranayam will give thee liberation. So control of breath will give you liberation. But control of breath will come only once you're alert that you're not breathing rightly. So be alert. A yogi is ever aware and alert about his or her own bodily posture, about the position, about whether the person is smiling or not, because most of the people around you are in a sad mode. So correct your posture, consciously smile to yourself, consciously do deep breathing and elevate your prana, consciously uplift your gaze. These are simple things that will help you to live more super consciously and easily then you will be able to transcend desire. Okay. So then Master says, the seeker should be vigilant and with firm discrimination strike down the enemy whenever he lifts in any form whatsoever. So again, so he's talking about the mental battle. So as soon as you are aware in your mind that this desire is coming up again, immediately you watch. And the beautiful thing is, simply by watching that the desire is arising, the power of the desire reduces. And once you have watched it, then you can do the various things that we just said. So changing your bodily posture, changing the movement of prana within by using breathing techniques, then by bringing in your intellectual analysis and cutting the head of desire, saying, I know that this is not going to fulfill me. I know I'm still going to feel incomplete even after I have satisfied this desire. So bring in all your faculties, bring in your heart, your mind, your intellect, your body, your prana, bring it there at the point when the desire is arising, and you can easily win over this problem of desire. Okay, now shloka number 40. Indriyani mano buddhir asyadhishthanamuchyate etarvirmohayatyesha ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनम. इंद्रियां, मन और बुद्धि को इच्छा का दुर्जय दुर्ग कहा जाता है. इनके द्वारा आत्मा के ज्ञान को ढक कर वासना जीवात्मा को भ्रमित करती है. The senses, mind, and intellect are said to be desire's formidable stronghold. Through these, desire deludes the embodied soul by eclipsing its wisdom. Okay. So, now if we want to defeat the enemy called desire, now if we consider this bodily kingdom as a fort, so we have to know where the enemy is. How do we attack the enemy unless we know where the enemy's stronghold is? Where does it lie? So this shloka clarifies to us as to what is the area where the desire is. So it says senses, mind, and intellect. Now these are the three things where desire is lodging. And how do we understand this? So of course we understand that the senses are when the sense object comes in contact with the sense organ, then this data flows into the mind. So and also the memory part of the mind now stores the pleasurable experience that comes with the contact of the senses with the objects. And then once the mind has this memory of a pleasurable, equation of a pleasurable experience, then what the intellect does is it starts to analyze the whole experience, and then it starts to anticipate how it can repeat this experience. So all of this triad is working together. The senses will gain the data, the pleasurable experience is felt by the mind, then it is stored in the mind, the intellect analyzes it, and then it wants to repeat it. And another amazing thing happens with the deluded intellect is that in the example of an addict, so a person who is repeating this cycle again and again and again, now the intellect is deluded because it thinks it has control over the situation. So it thinks that, oh, only this time I will do this behavior or act, and I have full control, I am in control and I'm not bound, I can easily take charge of my life and this habit, and I'm fully in control. So this is a delusion, because already the cycle of senses, mind, and intellect that has repeated itself so many times that the person is out of control. You are unable to control, and as we said earlier in the previous shlokas, the power of desire combines with the power of habit, and that leads us to addiction, and then we are completely lost, we are completely bound. When we are doing these first acts, we are free. Master says before you are performing the karma, you are free. But once the karma has been performed, you are bound automatically, because whatever you have done, the result of that is going to come. Whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, the universe will not wait for your approval to work its laws. So therefore, Master says, you must be careful during the first performance of such an act. And interestingly, we know that if the law of reincarnation is true, which is true according to this, the scripture that we are doing, is suppose a person has been born in this life and the first contact with alcohol sometimes makes him an alcoholic. Now, how does that happen? So it is because we know that during physical death, only the body is dropped. Sukshma Sharira, or the subtle body, with the mind and its power of senses, is continuing. So let us not forget that the memory of past habit is being carried forward with the subtle body. And so again, what happens in this life? The senses see alcohol, the senses taste alcohol, the mind already has a deep groove about the experience of alcohol. And this time the intellect, so in the intellect at this time may try lightly to avoid it, may try to say that I am in control. But because the senses and the mind complex is already so much into the habit from past, therefore, even one intake of alcohol can make you an addict in this life. And that is why one has to be very, very careful. People may think that this is not possible, that, oh, he just started drinking, how come he has become an addict? Because all of this is being carried forward from the past. So therefore, be careful. Be careful that you are not enslaving your senses. Be careful that you are not deluding your own mind. And be careful that you are not confusing your intellect. And how you will be able to do all of these things, we will be studying in the next shloka. And the most important of the factor how to change yourself is being in the company of people who have nobler thoughts, who have high aspirations, who are more sattvic, who are more inspired and inspiring, who are going more towards God in a more determined way. Because their energy will automatically magnetize your energy. So sometimes you cannot help yourself, but just putting yourself in the energy of people who are deep truth seekers, who are determined in their search for God, who want self-realization, just putting yourself in alignment with them in their company will help. And that is why attending satsangs is so important. That is why reading the scriptures and being in the company of truth is important. That is why listening to the voice of the Guru, voice of Swamiji, or voice of great saint is so important. What are you doing in this case? You are just putting your frequency in the frequency of a realized being or of a wiser person. And that will automatically help you, give you an upliftment, a push towards, betterment. Okay. So Master says that the desire deludes our external consciousness of the soul by obscuring its expression of wisdom, deriving from the direct perception of truth, with mere inferential conceptions born of the forces of nature. So a little complex statement, but what does this mean? So what happens is that the senses, the body is a gross vibration, right? And the soul is a subtle, finer substance, and the intuition that we have is a finer way of understanding of knowledge. So he's saying that the intuition that can reveal your soul to you is obscured by this data that the senses, the mind, and the intellect are interchanging. The grosser vibrations are suppressing the subtle vibrations, and of course are suppressing the absolute truth of the soul. So now let's remember what we studied in the holy science. We talked about paroksha anubhuti and aparoksha anubhuti. So the paroksha anubhuti means when you are taking knowledge of this world through either the senses or through inference, or you are reading something, you are listening something, so mainly through the senses or through some agency or through even reasoning and logic. So this is paroksha anubhuti, gaining knowledge via these agencies. But then aparoksha anubhuti is beyond the agency of anything. This is direct perception of who you are as the soul. So this is what Master is saying, that the aparoksha anubhuti means the direct perception of the soul. That intuition will be covered and obscured by this gross data that is traveling in between the senses, the mind, and the intellect. Therefore, and what do we want? If we want to know the soul, if we want to be free, then we have to know who we really are. And therefore, we want to go deeper into the subtle vibrations, into the finer zones of the intellect, and then beyond the intellect. So therefore, we must do away with desire. Then a Master says, meditational experience reveals that desire cannot be influence you beyond the spiritual life. So again, some metaphysics is happening here. Master is saying that at the point between the eyebrows, at the level of the spiritual eye, all those who can perceive a meditative light or even spaciousness, so all the thoughts they merge into that light. All the thoughts surrender into that spaciousness. So this is a point where you can go beyond thoughts. And what we are trying to do, we are trying to go beyond the mind and intellect, because we know that desire is present in mind and intellect. Your thoughts of wanting new things, of memory of old experiences, of anticipating pleasure is all roaming around in the realm of mind and intellect. And you want to transcend. If we want to go to aparoksha anubhuti, we have to go beyond the mind and intellect. And he says that this is the point, the spiritual eye is the point where you can ascend to that zone which is beyond the mind and intellect. And once this is a thoughtless zone. Once there is no thought, automatically desire is defeated. Therefore, practicing meditation, therefore doing your Kriya Yoga as given by the Guru, is so important if you want to defeat desire. And of course, let's not forget, defeating desire can be done by pranayam. So here comes the importance of Kriya Yoga and also focusing at the point between the eyebrows. And that is why Kriya Yoga is the airplane route to God. Because otherwise, even if you behave well in one life and you do so in multiple lives, it is going to take you thousands of lives to transcend all karma. But by performing pranayam and by focusing at the Agya Chakra, the spiritual eye, you can easily transcend desire and easily go beyond the ego state, because ego, let's remember, is represented at the medullary area, and by meditation you're bringing all the energy to the prefrontal cortex. So again, you are transcending your ego, you are burning out your karma, and you are directly experiencing yourself as the soul at the point between the eyebrows. Therefore, you cannot do away with meditation. You cannot say, okay, let me read the scripture, let me do some charity, let me be a good person. That's also good, but that is a lower level of good. So it is said that good is the enemy of the best. So what is the best? Do your Kriya Yoga. Focus at the point between the eyebrows. And of course, the other good things can continue as accessories. Okay. So let us remember that the bliss of the soul. Now, why are we trapped in the senses, mind, and intellect? Because they give us certain experiences of pleasure. But the truth is that the bliss of the soul is greater than any pleasure that the senses can promise us. It is greater than the memory or the anticipation of any pleasure that this entire body-mind instrument can give us. So therefore, we must aim for soul bliss, because it is something, once you have that gain, then you will have no other gain. No other lesser desire will be found so important once you have gained the completeness, the fulfillment, and the bliss of the soul, because you feel fulfilled right there, right then. And therefore, all desires will leave their stronghold over you. Okay. Shloka number 41. तस्मात्वभृन्द्रियाणादौ नियम्य भरतर्षभ पापमानं प्रजह्योनं ज्ञान-विज्ञान-नाशनम्. इसलिए हे भरत ऋषभ, पहले इंद्रियों को अनुशासित करके तुम इच्छा को नष्ट कर दो, जो ज्ञान और आत्म साक्षात्कार का पापपूर्ण विनाशक है. Therefore, O best of Bharat dynasty, Arjuna, first discipline the senses, then destroy desire, the sinful annihilator of wisdom and self-realization. So now comes the mathematical formula. So in the previous shlokas, Krishna is saying desire is your enemy. And then he told you, where does desire lie? And now he's telling you, kill them at the level of the senses. So if we think of ourselves as a fort, if the interaction between the sense objects and the senses is happening at the door, at the gate. So if we do not allow the enemy to enter the gate of the fort, inside the fort are the mind and the intellect, and of course the soul is the owner of the fort. So then if we can kill the enemy just outside, then we can be victorious over desire. It's going to be easy, but once it enters, once it is entered the fort, then you need all kinds of equipment. You need, because once it enters, it is going to go into all the alleys that are inside the fort. Then spotting the enemy is going to become very difficult. Killing it one by one is going to become very difficult. Therefore, the easiest way to conquer desire is to control your senses. And the control of senses has been prescribed in every religion that is there on the planet. And of course, and let us remember here, so extremist behavior is not going to function. So neither we are going to repress or suppress the senses, because the senses have been given to us so that we can function properly in this world. So if we were not able to see food or smell food, then how would we eat it? How would we go towards it? So we have to sustain this body. And the senses are given to us as an instrument, and they should work under our command. And so therefore, on the one hand, we should not suppress and repress, but on the other hand, we should not overindulge, exploit, and abuse the senses. So therefore, the path of moderation, the middle path, is always the best. That means you acknowledge that you have these instruments with which you interact with the world, with which you gain knowledge of the world, but how should you use them? And you will need wisdom. You will need knowledge to know how to use all these bodily instruments. And that is the exact knowledge we are trying to gain from this scripture, which is so beautiful and so complete. So here Master tells us that how, once you have the act of the senses is performed, and it could be anything. So any sensual act is performed, and repeated performance, we know, will create a sense habit. Now, once the sense habit happens, what happens? This habit creates a kind of an urgency. It is, oh, I must fulfill this desire. So again, sense desires will give rise to sense acts. Sense acts will give rise to sense habits. Sense habits will again give rise to more sense desires. So this is a vicious cycle in which we are all caught up. And how are we going to defeat it? Of course, we said we work at the level of the senses, but again, important is that by living in the higher chakras, we are able to more witness the activities of the mind. The more you live through your lower chakras and matter bound, the lesser you are aware of what activities are happening in your mind. The more you start to live a spiritual, more sattvic life, you are become more and more aware of the activities of your own mind, and also you start to introspect. And it is only then that you can see that the desire is arising, that my senses are getting activated, my memory is kicking in, my intellect is calculating, but no, I am the soul. And I know that this is a mirage. I know this is a delusion. I know that the promise of pleasure that these instruments are giving me is false. It is incomplete. It will not satisfy me completely. Therefore, I, as the boss, as the master, I will not fulfill this desire. And especially, of course, if it is an unnecessary desire. And slowly you tame your senses. Slowly you bring your mind under control. It cannot be done overnight. And therefore, repeated sadhana, everyday sadhana, regular sadhana, same with repeated affirmations, repeated prayer, repeated devotion, acts of devotion, repeated helping others. So using all your faculties to align it towards your higher spiritual goal. You have to do it all the time. Patanjali said your spiritual practice must be unceasing. And of course, we know we cannot meditate 24 hours a day, but we can perform different yogas at different point or time in our day. For example, we can, when we are meditating, we are in dhyana, but other parts of the day we can utilize with karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. But if we want moksha, then we have to align all our forces, all our faculties, and the inner desire, the true desire of God realization. And then you will find that you can easily, that is why Master has said that if you are practicing sincerely, if you are following even 1/100th of what he has taught you, if you are, meditating regularly, then you can become a Jivan Mukta in this life. We should all aim to be a Jivan Mukta in this life. Okay. So Master says, he says, to find freedom from the enslaving power of the senses, the individual must first avoid the material environment that easily excites his specific psychophysical weakness, and then must kill the inner desires that will otherwise accompany him wherever he goes. So again, Master is pointing out that how at the first level only, at the contact of the senses only, you should avoid going into the sense habit. So avoid all those environments which provoke you to go back into your bad sense habits. The more awareness of the lasting inner bliss one attains, the less he is entrapped by desire. So the more and more you meditate, the more and more calmness, peace, joy, light you feel in yourself as a result of regular meditation, the more you have a sense of comparison. You know that the meditative bliss is much higher, and it is in your command to some extent as compared to sensory pleasure. Sensory pleasure is minuscule, it is petty in front of the bliss, the calmness that you feel with meditation. And all those who have been meditating for few years, I know many of us are, already can testify to this, that when meditation starts to give you that bliss, then all sensual pleasures become very petty. And what has Sri Yukteswarji said in Autobiography of a Yogi? He has said that when your joy in meditation is greater than the joy you achieve from any other sensual experience, know that you have found God. Because God is Satchidananda. God is that experience of joy that the entire humanity is seeking. So check with yourself. Is your joy in meditation greater than the joy that you receive from other worldly experiences? If not, means you need to work a little more so that meditation becomes so attractive to you that you know that the bliss you are seeking, the calmness you are seeking, that you quickly, whenever you get the time, you're so addicted to meditation that you go into that meditation and that gives you the peace that you're looking for. It takes you towards self-realization, which is the goal of our life. And of course, it helps us to transcend all limiting desires. Okay. Shloka number 42. इन्द्रियाणि पराण्याहुर् इन्द्रियेभ्यः परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बार्धुर्यो बुद्धे परस्तु स। इंद्रियों को भौतिक शरीर से श्रेष्ठ कहा जाता है, मन को इंद्रियों से श्रेष्ठ समझा जाता है, बुद्धि मन से श्रेष्ठ है, परंतु वह आत्मा बुद्धि से भी अति श्रेष्ठ है। The senses are said to be superior to the physical body. The mind is superior to the sense faculties. The intelligence is superior to the mind. But he, the self, is superior to the intelligence. Okay. So wonderful explanation here. And Yogananda ji has given us a comparison with a chariot, a rath. So what do we have in a chariot? Of course, we have the body of the chariot. On the chariot is the driver of the chariot. The driver has reins in his hand, and those reins are connected to the horses. So this is the example that has been classically given in many scriptures to compare our own bodily and mental instruments. So what represents what? So the chariot itself is the body. The horses, and in this shloka is 10 in number. So 10 stallions or 10 horses are representative of the 5 organs of the senses and the 5 motor organs. So these 10 stallions have reins, or the reins are then, the reins are supposed to be the mind. And then the driver of the chariot is the intelligence. So the greater than the body of the chariot, so the chariot cannot move without the horses, right? So greater than the chariot is the horses. Greater than those horses are the reins. Greater than the reins is the driver of the chariot. And then what is the soul? The soul is the owner of this entire instrument. The soul is the owner of the chariot, the horses, the reins, and the driver. So what is greater than what? Of course, the owner is on the top. Under him should act the intelligence, which is the driver. Under him, under the control of the driver and control of intelligence, should be the mind, the reins that the intellect is holding. And under that, the control of the reins should be the senses or the horses. And wherever this entire conglomeration of faculties will go, there the chariot will follow. The body of the chariot or the physical body will go wherever this instrument is going to take us. So let us understand this superiority. If we say that the mind is greater than the senses, this means therefore the mind can attack over the senses, and we can actually control the desire at the level of the senses, which has been prescribed in the previous shlokas. And the intelligence, now mostly we think the intelligence is only gathering knowledge about this world, but the higher intelligence is that intelligence which gives you knowledge of your own true nature, of your own soul. So that is supposed to be higher knowledge. And therefore, you should use your intellect not only to understand and gather the knowledge of this world, which mostly school, colleges, everybody is telling you about the knowledge of the world, but you should also refine your intellect to gather knowledge about your soul. You should refine your intellect. And how will you refine your intellect? Is by doing all the things we said previously, means reading the scriptures, attending satsangs, listening to the voice of saints and sages and gurus. That way, the data that you are putting in will refine that in your intellect. And we know the process of Jnana Yoga. How do we become, how do we follow the path of Jnana Yoga? Is Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasana. So Shravanam means listening, and Mananam means contemplating, and Nididhyasana means Dhyana, means meditating upon those truths. So therefore, if you know the sequence of authority, then you can exercise that authority over your own instruments. You will not say that, oh, I have this bad habit, but I can't help it. It's foolish to say such a thing. If you know that your intellect is more powerful over your senses and mind, you will be able to exercise that knowledge and that power. And if you know that the soul is the greatest, then you will turn your intellect towards the soul. So there is no point crying and wailing and complaining. Know the science behind your own being. Know the maths, how it works in your body. And then use those instruments accordingly. Now we are daily in our life, we are on the battlefield. Literally, we are on the battlefield because we have physical battles, we have mental battles, we have moral and ethical battles, we have pranayam battles at every level, spiritual battles. Every day we are fighting the battle. If you do not know your own arms and ammunition, your own placement, how are you going to win this battle? And this battle is victory in the sense, this is a battle for joy. What is the prize of winning this battle is unconditional bliss. And that can happen only when your soul is in charge of your intellect and your intellect is in charge of your mind. The mind is in charge of the senses, not the reverse. The problem that has happened with most people is the senses have become the boss and you have become the slave. And that is why the chariot is going in a pit. That is why there is so much sorrow and suffering. And if you want to truly reverse this, then you will have to reverse the controls. You will have to become a master. And there is no shortcut. And you cannot just say that, oh, master is master, but you can also become a master. Because it's telling you the formula how to become one. And he's given you the tools and techniques and the whole body of knowledge. And if we still, knowing after all of this, if we still cannot work with this, then who's going to help us? We will have to understand, to accept our role, our own responsibility for our own redemption. And with this given science and the art of Kriya Yoga, we can free ourselves and we must free ourselves. Okay. Okay, so Master gives beautifully, he's very poetic and very literary and expresses. So he says, a man should have a sturdy carriage, well-kept horses, strong reins, an alert, well-trained driver, and a wisely chosen path to travel over to reach his destination. Now, translating it to us, he's saying, a devotee moving towards self-realization should have a healthy body, well-behaved senses, trained by self-control, strong mental reins to hold them, and a keen discriminative intelligence to guide them. Then the body chariot can traverse the straight and narrow path of right action to its destination. So amazing and beautiful. Okay, so now we come to the last shloka of chapter 3. This is verse number 43. Evam budhe param buddhva sanstambhyatmanam jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. हे महाबाहो, इस प्रकार आत्मा को बुद्धि से श्रेष्ठ जानकर तथा अहम को आत्मा से वश में करके शत्रु को नष्ट कर दो, जो दुर्जय तथा काम का रूप धारण किए हैं. O mighty armed Arjuna, thus cognizing the self as superior to the intelligence and disciplining the ego by the soul, annihilate the foe, hard to conquer, wearing the form of desire. So one last time, again he says that the desire is our foe, and it is wearing this enemy is wearing this garb of desire, and your ego, the body, the soul which is identified with the body, so the lower existence, the ego is trapped into this conditioned existence, and it has got lost into desire because of the sense actions. Therefore, controlling your senses, knowing that the soul is higher than the ego and using the faculty of the intelligence, therefore defeat this enemy. So Master says that identification with the material body is the root cause of all sorrow and suffering. So again, let us analyze our day-to-day sorrow and suffering. We think we are this body. Therefore, all the problems of this body, we say, I am suffering. We do not say my body is suffering, because we are so much identified with the body, we think we are the body. If we were even a little wise, and if we want to be, relatively freer from suffering, we should start detaching ourselves from the experiences of the body. We must become the witness. We can actually say that yes, my body is in pain. But again, suffering is a choice. By detaching yourself from the pain a little bit, you can reduce your level of suffering. I'm not saying that it is going to be a miraculous thing the moment you say that, okay, the pain is in the body and you're not going to suffer. For saints, it is true. So there are so many examples of people, of saints, who refuse to take anesthesia because they can consciously withdraw their mind from the senses. And Swami Gyanananda is one example. Swami Vivekananda another example. Master another example. Mahatma Gandhi another example. So many stories where people can simply withdraw their mind away from the senses and not feel the pain of the body, realizing that they are separate from the body. Therefore, on a daily basis, unless we meditate regularly and have the direct experience of being the soul, how are you going to separate yourself from the body? You're always going to think, I am suffering, I am suffering, I am suffering. No. These are transient changes happening in the body, but I, the soul, am separate from it. I am of the nature of bliss. I am of the nature of perfection and immortality. So whatever is happening in the body, though appears to be temporarily affecting me, but cannot touch me actually. The soul, remember, the soul cannot be killed. It cannot be wetted, it cannot be burned, nothing can happen to the soul. We are all immortal beings. We are all divine light, temporarily wearing the garments of body. And if we decrease our identification with our body, automatically our sorrow and suffering will decrease. Also, our identification with the thoughts of the mind. We are all so engrossed, we think we are the mind. We are not trying to see that, oh, there is this faculty in me which is able to think. The thoughts are separate from me. I am aware of my thoughts are not aware of me. I am aware of my emotions are not aware of me. But what I say is, I am sad, I am angry, I am fearful, I am worried. No, I is separate. And that is the purpose of the spiritual path, that even though living in this life, even though having pains of the body and mind, you are still not suffering. That is where we want to go. And therefore, on a daily basis, it becomes our duty that we, practice meditation techniques where we can become that pure witness and pure awareness, and we can separate ourselves from the happenings of the body and mind. And only then can we become a master. Otherwise, how will we become a master? Therefore, regular daily meditation is of utmost importance. He says, realize yourself by awakening your intuition that you are not the body and mind. How will you awaken your intuition? By regular meditation, by focusing at the spiritual eye, by opening your heart with love and devotion. You have to do all the things that he has told you to do. And then, of course, anybody who is following these techniques is guaranteed. Krishna will say later that my devotee is never lost. All efforts count. Every good thought will count. Every control that you have exercised over your senses will count. Everything will add up and will take you to your self-realization. But how fast that is going to happen depends completely on your yearning and the amount of self-effort, of course, by the grace of God and the Guru. Okay. And then he says, what is the difference between intuition and intelligence? He says, intelligence is part of intuition. So it's like if you see a bulb and you turn the switch on, the bulb light. So he says, the electricity that is causing the bulb to light is that intuitive all-knowing power. And the light that comes from the bulb as a result of electricity is in intelligence. So your intellectual ability is only a part of your larger intuitive capability of knowing everything, because the soul is already all knowing. And understanding this, you will try to awaken your intuition by doing by the various techniques that we have been given. So Master says the man's intelligence is the light of cognition in the body. Intuition is the current flowing through the wires of the mind and intellect to produce that light. Intelligence guided by intuition, cultivated by contacting the soul in meditation, rightly disciplined, and this leads to this should be actually all of this, the meditation and your intuition, they should lead the error prone ego to relinquish itself, means to transcend its separate existence and to become one with the soul, or to recognize itself, to realize that it was always the soul. By its revelations of truth, intuition inspires the ego to forsake delusive desires in favor of obviously superior everlasting bliss of the soul. Realizing that we are the atman and not dead matter, we should conquer desire and cross the ocean of sorrow and suffering. With this, we end the third chapter, and this is how the ending usually is with these words. In the Upanishad of the Holy Bhagavad Gita, the discourse of Lord Krishna to Arjuna, which is the scripture of yoga and the science of God realization, this is the third chapter called Karma Yoga. Om Tat Sat. So friends, with this, we end today's class. And we shall take this journey onwards onto chapter 4 in the next class. And I thank you all for being with me on this journey. And with each class, with each shloka, it's kind of something in the mind is awakened, something in the heart is awakened. And that will slowly take us to the knowledge of our own being. And it is so beautiful to share these teachings with all of you who are all truth seekers. We are walking the path together. And it gives me great joy to have you with me as we go on this journey. So friends, let us share the blessings that we have received by learning this great scripture with all souls everywhere. Let us pray together. Divine Mother, beloved Lord Krishna, Thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all thy children. Manifest thy healing presence in all bodies, all minds, and all souls. Om. Om. Divine Mother, beloved Krishna, great Gurus, may thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion, and may we be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.